was driving down a very dark road, one that my headlights could barely illuminate. But my instinct told me I had to keep going, to get to the main highway as soon as possible, to civilization. I took a deep breath, but in front of me, on the road, a woman was walking with her back to me, barefoot. I saw her just in time to brake and not run her over. I stopped before reaching her. She turned toward me. It's a good night to tell horror stories. The atmosphere is cold around here from where we write, and it makes you want to have a coffee, a tea, a mate, and gather to tell and listen to stories. I thank all the people who have shared them, and especially those who are going to listen to the following stories from drivers, from conductors, from truckers. Stories of life behind the wheel, of encounters on highways that won't leave your mind, especially if you listen to us while driving. And well, if you're going to listen to this episode while driving at night, that's the perfect scenario. This episode is dedicated to you who are driving, all the rest of you who are at home or traveling on public transportation. If you can close your eyes and let yourself be carried away, because you are already entering into the following tales of the night. My dad drove a stake bed truck, those small cargo trucks that have bars or railings delimiting the cargo platform. It was for his work, but they let him use it on weekends for extra jobs, as long as he took good care of it. And on one of those trips to another town is where the following happened to us. We went to a village about 40 minutes from here to deliver some materials for a construction site. We loaded some bags of cement and some wood. As many times before, I tagged along. I liked helping my dad, although at that time I still couldn't carry much. I was 12 years old. The construction site where we left everything was empty, but they had given him the keys to leave the cargo inside. It was going to be a very large house, and that surprised me because in that town, there were only a few little houses. There weren't even 1,000 inhabitants, perhaps less, and almost all in old houses built in a rudimentary way. And toward the end of a street, this time under construction, that building that could be seen from afar, 2 stories with a terrace. That's where we went to leave the cargo, and as I told you, I didn't carry much. We took quite a while. We finished around 8. We locked the fence with a padlock, and very tired, we prepared to return. We were very happy, very much so, because my mom, every time we worked on weekends, would prepare us something delicious that would be waiting for us warm at home. No one values a warm meal more than someone who hasn't had food to eat. And that was my dad. So we were in a hurry to get back. That house was the tallest in town. From there we saw that only a couple of little houses had lit up a little light, and it was already dark. It looked beautiful from there. We crossed the town in just a few minutes, and before reaching the last exit, a lady saw us and ran toward us, raising her arms. "Take us to the next town, please. I'll give you everything I have." She was referring to our town, to where we were going, and when she said that, she showed us some coins. The poor woman didn't even have $20. My dad asked her if everything was okay, if she needed help, and the lady insisted that we take them to town, that they would get in the back, that we wouldn't be in danger. My dad laughed. How was that lady going to think that my dad, a robust man used to carrying bags of cement, was going to be scared of her? He got out of the truck and asked her what was happening. He told her that yes, he would take her, but he wanted an explanation. The lady thanked him. She told him that her daughter was sick, that she had to take her urgently to town. My dad repeated that yes, he would do it, that they should get in. The lady then made a signal, and from among the bushes came out a boy with a child's face, but enormous. He must have measured more than 2 meters. I had never seen anyone so tall. He was carrying a girl who looked my age despite his height. The boy's eyes, I remember well, were of innocence, of fear. The lady helped get the girl up into the back of the truck. My dad stayed silent. I don't know if he wanted more explanations. The lady told him to take advantage, that she was asleep, to get them away from there as soon as possible while they could. My dad asked her if they were in danger, and the lady said that if they saw her daughter outside, they could throw her out. Without understanding anything, my dad got into the truck. The truck lowered because of the weight of the boy, who jumped up in one leap, and we continued along the road. That road to my town was ugly, dangerous, so my dad was going carefully, although the lady kept telling him from the back to hurry up. A few kilometers ahead she was saying something else, but we didn't understand. And without asking, I stuck half my body out the window, and I asked the lady what was happening. She looked at me with sadness when she realized I was a child. She told me to ask Dad to accelerate, that she had given her daughter pills, but she didn't want her to wake up in the middle of the road, not in the darkness. I told my dad, but he said no, that it was dangerous to go faster, that he would continue like that, and to do what he could. Something horrible was heard in the back. The truck suddenly turned off. The engine, the radio, everything, as if it had run out of energy. We heard the boy struggling with something in the back. The lady was saying things while crying, things we couldn't make out, but they sounded sad, as if she were crying. And you could also hear a man insulting. Someone else was back there with them. My dad got out, took his knife, and told me not to move, to lock the door. I remember the sound of the mountain, of the Sierra, the crickets, the powerful night, the struggling in the back. My dad took 2 steps outside toward the cargo and then came back. He told me not to move, that whatever I heard, I shouldn't get out through the window that faced the back. I could barely see between the slats. There was no man shouting. What was talking was the girl. The boy had thrown himself on top of her as if trying to control her. My dad had already climbed into the bed. He was helping. I didn't know what or how, but I heard him struggling too. Then I heard the girl laughing as if they were tickling her, now with her voice. And between crying and those laughs, she was shouting, "Let's go, let's go." The radio surprised my dad. He jumped from the bed and got in pale, very pale. And he is dark-skinned, but at that moment he looked like a sheet of paper. It seemed like he had no blood in his face. He started the truck and we took off down the road. He stepped on it. He accelerated without thinking about the holes in the road or the ravines on the side. The truck just bounced, and in the back I saw the lady holding on and the boy pressing the girl against the floor. I held on tight. I had never been so scared in my life, because of what I saw, because of what I heard, but also because I had never seen my dad drive like that. He didn't even answer me. He seemed gone. And twice we were about to catch the curve and fall. He didn't brake until we were entering my town, and the lady shouted not to stop. My dad was shouting back, asking where to take her. The lady was just shouting not to brake, to keep going. I told my dad, "The lady says not to stop." But he, upon entering, stopped the truck and got out. I felt an enormous weight when the boy jumped down, and to my right the girl was running away with the boy a few steps behind, trying to grab her, catch her. The lady came out running, limping behind them, and my dad and I stayed there watching as they disappeared into the night. We never found out what happened. That day it was already night when they thought I was asleep. I heard my dad cry. I got up and put my ear to his door. He was telling my mom that when the truck turned off on us, when he got out to see what was happening in the back, the girl was floating. The girl was lying down, but it seemed like she was going to fly away, and the boy was holding her down with all his strength. He said that she was the one who was talking like a man, that a horrible voice was coming out from inside her. You know, after that, people around here started calling him grandfather. My dad. And it's precisely because of that night that almost all his hair fell out in a matter of weeks, and what remained turned white, very white. He looked like a little old man, although he hadn't even reached 50 yet. Because of my work, I was recently offered to go up to that village. There are more little houses now, some big ones, beautiful ones. But I said no. And the thing is, I haven't gone up there since that night. My dad even less. He never got over what he saw, perhaps because we never heard from the lady, the boy, or that girl again. Very good evening, my community. My name is Teresita, and I thank you very much for accompanying me so much on the days when I am all alone. My 2 grandchildren come to take care of me on weekends, but from Monday to Friday I am alone, and I have found in you, in your stories, a window to a world I didn't know. I never liked horror things, but for some reason, I listened to your program with great attention. I feel like I know each one who has shared an experience, and that's how I finally got encouraged to tell mine. Back in the 90s, my big guy, my husband, may he rest in peace, was still driving his trailer. He was already old, tired. His illness had weakened him and he made shorter and shorter trips. Luckily at his work they supported him and allowed him to do it that way. I don't know how it is in other places, but around here the criminals approach truckers a lot, even though they are honest and have their normal work and do well. They want to hire them, almost forced to give them, carrying their garbage, taking advantage of their normal trips. That's how they approached my big guy. They told him that several of his coworkers had already done it, but they were already known, so now they were going to use him. As in many cases, they told him he had 2 alternatives: do it and earn good money, or say no and suffer the consequences. And my big guy, stubborn and obstinate, just as he was, he told them to do what they wanted, but he wasn't caring anything for them. And so that ended, at least for a while. A week later, they came looking for him again. They told him the same thing again, that they were going to give him a second chance. Now they were going to pay him less, but if he said no again, he simply wouldn't live to tell about it. They asked him what good dignity would do him once he was dead, and that made him think. But again he sent them to hell and told them he wasn't afraid of them. But that was a lie, of course. That's when he told me and said he was worried, that he didn't think they were empty threats. From then on, we no longer went out together. He always went out alone. He no longer let me use his car. If I went out for everything, I went with killers, even to the store, never alone. Who knows where from? But he even got himself a gun. Sometimes I saw him looking out the window when he heard strange voices on the street from people who weren't from here. I saw him stay with his hand on the gun, ready to pull it out. What they did was torture him with fear, because they didn't tell him when, just that they were going to come for him. I was very bad and I mentioned it to a very devout neighbor, and we got together to pray among friends with the acquaintance of an acquaintance of an acquaintance. We reached Doña Mayo, who came from far away to pray with us and to ask for his protection. She gave me some red candles for St. Peter. She had prayed over them all night, keeping vigil. She told me how to pray to him to make the invisible cut to his enemies. I started praying with much, much faith, convinced that this way, with prayers, was how I could help him. The only way I had left. And one afternoon, yes, they were waiting for him. 2 boys barely of age and an experienced old man. The 3 with weapons ready to fulfill the order, parked on the corner with a clear view of the house. And I remember having seen that car since early. I remember I felt something strange, but I did what I always did. I kept asking St. Peter to make him invisible to enemies. Weeks had passed and my big guy was getting careless. Had he stopped being afraid or had he gotten tired of having it? One of the two. That day he went out walking to quickly leave a tool for his compadre, another trucker who lived around the corner 2 blocks away. He passed in front of the Sicario's car, but they didn't do anything to him. Then my big guy passed back with his slow and heavy step as always. Unhurried, again in front of them he advanced, giving them his back. Walking here, to the house, and he arrived without any news. Just a few minutes later we were talking near the window, when we heard the sound of a patrol car, and then a commotion. A patrol had passed and saw the men in the car as suspicious and approached. Then, one of the boys ran out. The other 2 didn't manage to pull out their gun. They were detained with several weapons. They caught the boy who ran a few hours later. That one I was most afraid of was the one they got everything out of. It was his first job. My big guy was the test for him to join the others, the gang. They were waiting all morning to kill my big guy. But he said they never saw him leave. That they stayed there waiting, attentive to the house, to the window, to the door. But he didn't come out, and that was the strange thing. Community, because I swear he did. That he passed right in front of them. And that's when I understood that that prayer was not only figurative, that St. Peter made him invisible for a moment to his enemies, and I'm sure that saved his life. My big guy died many years later, in 2010. A quiet life, especially his last years. When he stopped driving, he kept going to the warehouse with his co-workers. I think the new boys learned a lot from him, especially that dignity has no price. And now I still ask St. Peter, for all of them. Those who came after him to work the trucks, that they drive carefully, that they not be visible to bad people. And today, as I know many people listen to you while driving as they used to listen to the radio, today, if you give me permission, I will ask for all of you too. Thank you very much for listening to my story, even though it's not about ghosts or scary like the others. Community. I think this previous story is very connected to the one that follows, not only because it tells us about events to truck drivers on the highway, but because it talks to us about a particular saint, about St. Peter. As you heard the previous story, it also has a paranormal element, an element of faith, if you want to call it that. That's why I'm totally convinced it was worth telling, even when you are someone out there who doesn't believe in it. Remember the selective skepticism I told you about? There are people who believe in ghosts or witches, but see it as ridiculous to believe in saints. And there are people who believe the opposite. Here we respect all beliefs, because they are all part of a personal experience of each person's life, of their circumstances. But well, I won't distract you with more reflections. It's time to return to the highway. One way or another, I have always worked behind the wheel. I have driven everything, from taxis, trucks, delivery vehicles to forklifts. But now I'm going to have to tell you about a brief period of my life when I drove a small moving truck. It was never my main job, but I drove while I also worked in a taxi at night. My dad was sick, and my brothers and I worked as much as we could to help. That's why, out of necessity, I ended up accepting a long-moving trip from Tamaulipas to Coatzacoalcos, Veracruz, in bordering states in the Gulf of Mexico. But those who know us know that these two cities are at the farthest extremes of both. So this journey became a road of more than 20 hours through highways and towns that they warned me could be quite dangerous. I must clarify that I'm talking about a time when Tamaulipas was not what it is now, a place where it is difficult to travel safely on the highways, for anyone. Back then, the dangerous points were few and known, but even so, I went with my grandmother before leaving so she could give me her blessing. I didn't believe in anything, but I always knew something good went with me when she told me that the Virgin of Guadalupe accompanied me. So every time I was going to do something important, a new job or something that felt risky, like that trip, I would stop by her place first to take her blessing with me. So I stopped by there, then by my friend's truck, my boss's, which was already loaded, and I left toward the highway, ready to arrive the next day at my destination in the afternoon, as had been scheduled. The challenge was not only to take the truck loaded with furniture to Coatzacoalcos, but I had never gotten to Veracruz. I barely knew a little beach that was entering the state, and that was it. And now I had to cross it completely. I'm talking about a time when we didn't carry maps on the phone, so I had to pay attention to all the signs and not get lost, or I was going to end up in who knows what town. And then if I said I couldn't get into trouble. I was going an hour behind the first moving truck, the one my friend and business owner was driving. He was carrying 2 loaders. I was driving alone, but I would arrive just in time for them to also unload this one. At least that was the plan. My friend was always the changer, but unfortunately in all his ventures he always looks for ways to save a few pesos, in this case sending me on the road. I alone remember very well how comfortable I was going the first hours of the road. How beautiful it was to see the sunset on the highway listening to music, just thinking. The truth is that around there I was thinking about how good you are. I'm just very serious. It's hard for me to make conversation with people I don't know. So I was enjoying the road, going in silence, just listening to my music and the truck's engine. It was already night when I left Tamaulipas, when I realized I had never driven so far in my life. Everything was very dark over there. The few towns I passed through looked solitary in darkness, as if there was no one. I reached a part with a lane painted with stripes. It seemed like I couldn't advance anymore, that if I continued I was going to get into the opposite direction. So I made a decision. Now I understand that was a mistake, that I should have continued straight, that it was confusion, that I got off the highway for a moment of doubt, of distraction, a last-second decision. But it was very dark. The truck's lights illuminated very little of the road, and I didn't understand. I realized when it was too late, when the decision I made took me to a single-lane road that moved away from the highway, and that didn't seem to take me to a town either. It didn't take me anywhere. There was only darkness, and I couldn't find where to turn around. It was too dangerous to attempt a U-turn, even if I had had space to reverse. So I advanced, hoping to find a place to return. But there wasn't any. I advanced until I saw some lights ahead, some little houses. I thought that surely there I would find the road to return to the highway, to continue south. I remember I stopped at the side of the road as soon as I found a place to get out of that small lane. I tried to check the map without having any idea where I was yet, and there I felt something. I felt something for the first time in my life. Or rather, if I think carefully to try to explain it, it was the opposite of something I stopped feeling, something I was missing. My grandmother's blessing. I didn't feel it there. I was alone, far from everything. I felt that somehow, on that road, next to that dark mountain, no one, nothing saw me. As if there the blessing didn't reach me, nor did the Virgin of Guadalupe accompany me. That's why, when some lights turned on about 40 meters ahead, when a person looked out the window of one of the little houses, I felt I had to leave there. I felt I was far. The world would accelerate the truck as much as I could, which wasn't much. A little further ahead to find where to turn, upon reaching the little houses and a road that seemed to return toward the main highway. And I took it. The person who was looking out the window of the little house made a signal and shouted something I didn't manage to hear, but I left accelerating from there. Luckily, I was able to gain speed to leave those little houses behind in seconds, and I was again on a dark road, one that my headlights barely illuminated, but my instinct told me I was already driving back to safety, to the highway, to civilization. I took a deep breath, but in front of me, on the road, a woman appeared walking with her back to me, barefoot. I saw her just in time to brake and not run her over. And as soon as I stopped, someone jumped on me next to the door. From the darkness. Someone did it too, in the same way, on the passenger side. 2 men got me down in a second and I understood what it was all about. Damn it. They were robbing me. Just what they had warned me about. What my friend had talked to me so much about. Don't deviate. Or in any deviation in the wrong place. In the wrong town. Those hours we'd be without cargo. And if you get fierce, I won't tell you so much. He told me and it was the first thing I did. And if my luck was such that I got off the highway in one of those wrong towns. The only thing I did was cooperate until yesterday, not to resist. To let them take whatever it was so they wouldn't hurt me. So I got down with my hands up and they pushed me to one side of the road toward the mountain. When they were taking me toward it, I turned to see the truck, but then I received another push and I noticed that no one was getting in it, that no one was opening the box, that they weren't taking anything out. And me? Those two guys, the woman from the road and another one I don't know where he came from. They pushed me and took me toward the brush and made me climb toward the darkness. I turned once more, and before receiving a blow to the face, I could see the moving truck alone with the lights on in the middle of the road. I realized they hadn't stopped me to rob me, that for some reason they were making me climb the mountain. They were taking me. I remember I was very scared that the only thing I could do was keep walking. They pushed me and said strange things to me. I didn't understand them, and everything sounded very ugly, horrible. They seemed like wild people, I swear. It seemed like they were growling at me. I closed my eyes because it was the same, because with my eyes open I couldn't see anything either. It was so dark. I thought of my grandmother. I tried to feel her close. I tried to feel her blessing, to believe, to have faith, that which she talked to me so much about. And at that moment I wondered if my fate would be worse if I kept walking, or if I tried to fight, to escape. And they hurt me. I convinced myself that if I went up, whatever the reason, I wasn't going to come back. I convinced myself that I had to fight to escape. At least try. I opened my eyes, pushed one of the men, and he fell among the branches. Without seeing, I threw punches. I hit the other. I hit the woman. I felt I hit something small that was trying to bite me, that seemed like a child. And then I started running toward nothing, downward, back to the truck. I let my legs go. I fell and got up. I couldn't see anything but the truck's light in the distance, and I ran toward it with all my strength. It was still on. They had left it like that. I got in. I pressed the accelerator to the floor, but the poor engine barely advanced. Anyway, I didn't stop. And if I can confess something to you, if someone had gotten in my way, I wouldn't have braked. I no longer felt that my life depended on it, on returning to the main highway, and when I finally arrived. When I finally did it, I started to cry. I breathed. I felt I was almost safe. But anyway, I continued driving above the speed limit, especially for the truck, which there I did notice was starting to rattle because of its not-so-great mechanical state. I was barely going to make it to the destination, but at that moment what I cared about least was burning out the engine. Despite the noise of the engine being forced, I thought I heard something. Something that made me turn my gaze toward the hill, toward the darkness of the mountain from which I had just escaped. There. It was the first time in my life I saw a witch. And by witch I mean those fireballs that fly near the trees. I have no idea what they are, but that's what they call them. And the one I saw was very clear and flew fast, parallel to me. But up there, on the hill, sometimes getting a little closer to the highway. Suddenly it moved away until it vanished suddenly. And I didn't stop anymore. I didn't stop for a moment until I ended up catching up with my coworkers, arriving in Veracruz. And that with all the time I had lost. They saw me surprised. They asked me what had happened. Why did I look like that? And I told them everything as it was, even with the fireball flying, following me. One of the loaders who was from Veracruz precisely told me that they hadn't wanted to rob me of the cargo, that they were coming for me, that they were taking me to deliver me to something on the mountain, that I was lucky to have survived. Because what's up there doesn't just eat your body, but your soul. That those were. It was full of witches, but not like the ones you hear about when talking about Veracruz, about Catemaco. Different witches, forest beings that have been there for centuries. I felt he was exaggerating, and he was always like that. Exaggerated and a bit of a storyteller. But what he told me scared me a lot. To think about the possibility that it had at least something real. To imagine how close I was to such a frightening fate. Somehow I feel, no matter how much they tell me I was lucky, that my grandmother's blessing saved me, and now I always carry a St. Benedict medal that she gave me. I have it tied to my left ankle. I don't take it off for anything. And above all, always I repeat the same prayer to St. Peter, to take care of me and my family. I don't know if it's coincidence. I don't know if you have already been in places full of evil, But until now, I have never again felt that I am in a place where His blessing and the care of the Virgin and her saints don't reach me. Thank you very much for listening, community. Thank you for letting us accompany you, especially if you're driving, especially if you listen to us from a dark highway. Open your eyes wide. The only sure thing is that one of you will be the next protagonist of Tales of the Night.